Hi, I'm Lydia O'Leary. I am a franchise consultant with Ambia powered by FranChoice, and I've got Eric Wexler here, who is also a colleague of mine at FranChoice. And what we do is we help people find, evaluate, and fund franchises. So very similar to an executive recruiter finding the right match for people, we help franchise companies find people who are a really good match for their brand and are ready to take the leap into business ownership. And the topic we're going to be covering today is resales, because a question we get all the time is, do you have an existing business in your inventory, and what do those look like? And so we're just going to kind of take back the curtain, peel the layers back, and really talk about, resales versus existing independent businesses versus starting from scratch, and cover a lot of questions that we get all the time. And Eric Wexler has a lot of experience in that area, so I thought it'd be great for us to get together and have a conversation about it. So, Eric, thank you for joining me.
Yeah,
And
you're welcome, Lydia. It's always a pleasure speaking with you.
so, first question, when buying an existing business, what indicators do you look for to confirm whether the market's stable or if it's already declining? What are some things that you would say to look out for?
Well, probably a lot of what we're going to talk about today is very general and very broad, and looking at an individual business or a specific business is going to be very circumstantial. Whether a franchise or a non-franchise business, whether a resale or whether launching from scratch, it'll be very, very circumstantial. So I should note, maybe even apologize in advance, that I'll probably be saying that more than a few times. What's most important, or what's certainly very important, perhaps most important, among a lot of very important things, in evaluating a business in any of those four pillars that I just suggested: franchise startup, franchise resale, independent startup, independent resale, which I should add, I don't really like comparing the word franchise to independent, but maybe we'll circle back around to that.
Okay.
You have to understand the business. You have to understand the business model. You have to understand the KPIs, the key performance indicators. You have to understand what drives those KPIs, the fundamentals that drive the business, before you can determine not whether a business is in decline or not. I presume most people would quantify whether a business was in decline or whether it was on the upswing by revenue, first and foremost. Of course, there's a whole lot more to consider beyond revenue, like profit. Obviously, revenue is great, but you
Right.
can have super wonderful and growing revenue. If your profit margins are not where they need to be, then the business isn't successful. But understanding the operational KPIs of the business, and then understanding what drives those KPIs.
Yeah. So, what
So,
if someone doesn't know what KPIs are? Eric, what are some of the main KPIs to look at when you're looking at a business and determine whether
yeah, that's a great
it makes
question,
sense?
and of course it depends on the business and the business model. But every business, no matter what you do, whether it's a service or a product, whether it's retail or not, whether you're making matchbooks or you're making Ferraris, a very broad general set of KPIs is customer acquisition. What does it take to acquire a customer? And to frame it back to your question, if customer acquisition is in decline, why is that? Is there less of a need in the marketplace? Is it that the pricing of the product or service is not where it should be, and so you're not driving customer acquisition? If, depending on the business model, and the operational considerations that impact the business, is it the salesperson? Is it if a call comes in responding to an ad? Is it a call center that's handling or mishandling? There are all kinds of factors that are very particular to a model and that are circumstantial, that need to be understood. But very broadly, customer acquisition, what impacts that? Is the business acquiring the customers that it needs, the volume that it needs to at least initiate revenue? Once you have a customer, the next very broad set of lots and lots of KPIs is, how do you execute operationally? If it's a recurring type of service, how do you keep customers? If it's more of an infrequent type of service, I'm happy to give some examples, but then are you executing operationally well enough such that you satisfy customers and you get the Google reviews that you need, or you get the referrals that you need, again, depending on the particulars of that business. So very broadly, getting customers and what does it ultimately cost to acquire a customer.
Mm-hmm.
Significant factor. What does it take to actually execute the service to keep a customer or to drive referrals and proper reviews? And then the third consideration really has to do with those first two considerations, but then lots of other things is, are you optimizing efficiencies?
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to be as profitable as you need to be? What are all the other metrics, all the other financial components of the business? Because maybe you can drive customer acquisition, and that seems to be excelling. But maybe
Mm-hmm.
you're doing it as an example because you're dropping your prices below market prices. So
Mm.
your customer acquisition as a KPI is going up, but you're going to really struggle delivering good service and profitability. So there could be lots of factors. And then again, operational execution.
Yeah.
Maybe you're giving a great service and you're keeping all of your customers happy, but it's because you're providing them, say, more of a service than they need. But because of your labor expenditure, as an example, is too high. And so you're keeping all
Mm-hmm.
your customers satisfied, but you can't drive a bottom line.
Right.
Maybe you really focus on your bottom line by having your employees execute exceptionally efficiently, but that's not satisfying customers. So with each customer you have a really strong bottom line as a KPI, as a metric, but you're not getting the return customers. So lots of very broad factors: customer acquisition, operational execution, and then optimizing the balance between keeping customers happy and being profitable. Very broadly stated are where most KPIs fall: product, service, retail, non-retail, matchbook, Ferrari.
Yeah. And evaluating what those KPIs are and what is the biggest challenge in that business too.
Yeah,
And
well,
can you
for sure.
yeah.
And most businesses have multiple challenges. The biggest challenge sometimes is I was going to say easiest, but there's a difference, of course, between easy and simple. The biggest challenge sometimes is the simplest, certainly to identify. And then perhaps it's more simple to manage than the little itty bitty challenges that are all over the place that may be harder to actually put KPIs to.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, how about the risk of acquiring a independent business versus an existing franchise resale?
Yeah, so an independent resale, a non-franchise resale versus a franchise. Yeah,
Yes.
struggle with the word independent, as I mentioned before,
Yeah.
because I don't want it to be perceived or considered that, well, then a franchise is not independent. Of course, a franchise,
Right.
and let me take a big step back and say I'm a franchise guy. I'm passionate about the franchise model. For whom it's the right fit, it's not the right fit for everybody, and I'm sure we'll discuss that more. I'm passionate about it. I've seen tremendous success franchisees and franchisors build really profound, impactful, fulfilling, successful businesses. I'm a franchise guy, but I'm a business ownership guy, so whether franchise or not. Your question was the difference?
Yeah, but how would you weigh the risk between buying
Yeah,
an existing franchise
right.
versus a non-franchise, I'll say then, versus
Yeah,
independent?
in either case, a resale, since that's the topic today, right?
Yeah.
Well, so again, hard to be completely objective here because I am such a franchise guy, but I do believe this objectively, that you have far less risk. You have a much greater ability to truly evaluate how a business is doing and what it needs to be doing better or what it needs to maintain, if it's doing well as it is with a franchise, because it's the sample size can sometimes, often, be, cumulatively speaking, hundreds of years, perhaps thousands of years across dozens or hundreds of markets. If the franchisor is a good franchisor, and of course we and our colleagues work with the best of franchisors, then the franchisor understands their KPIs and they understand how to impact the business in the most effective ways. Whereas an independent business, I think it's obvious from how I just laid the comparison to a franchise business, it has its set of KPIs, probably not nearly as well tracked, just because it may not. But even if the person that built that business up did so very deliberately and tracked their KPIs and all, the sample size is just so less. And even if it's a business that has thousands of similar businesses like it across the country, you don't have access to the data and to the folks that are operating or supporting or the vendors or any other aspect of the business other than the sample that you're looking at of an independent business. So I hate to sound really heavy-handed about franchise over non-franchise businesses, but there is extreme difference. And so having that access to information and experience and data definitely, for sure, like categorically reduces the risk. At least it gives you the information you need as a potential business owner, potential buyer of that business, to very confidently and just as importantly, very competently determine what the risk is. And every business, owning a business has risks. Of course, so many things in life have risks. It's about measuring the risk and determining that the return versus the risk can be achieved confidently. Huge difference in risk assessment between a franchise resale and a non-franchise resale. And that crosses from resale even to launching a business from scratch independently versus launching a business from scratch as a franchise.
Yeah. And I guess here's a good plug is we always have people who are looking, not, I guess I shouldn't say always, a lot of times we have people who are looking at existing businesses and I always encourage them to continue looking, but then also still evaluate the franchise options and see which one's a better fit. And if the existing business is a better fit, then fantastic, move forward with that, but at least go in with all the information. So
the more diligent somebody conducts, the more informed they are, and presumably the more competent and more confident they can be in making a decision. Because it's a profound consideration: business ownership, franchise, non-franchise, existing revenue or resale or starting from scratch. What can be achieved is profound. And so the decision to do it, the effort that it takes, the investment, it's all profound. It's a really profound, business ownership is a truly profound consideration that can have a truly profound impact on someone's life and legacy.
Absolutely. So one of the things we've talked about throughout the years, Eric, is the model, finding the right model. And so it's not just about the resale versus an existing business. It's about the model, not what the business is doing. What are you able to achieve because of the model? So can you go into more detail of finding the right model? How do you find the right model? Number one.
Well, it's above all else, as you said clearly in the introduction, it's what we help people do. Is matching them to what could potentially be the right model. It's their research, it's their diligence that where they make that determination. We just do the introduction. But there are roughly 4,000 franchisors registered in the United States and North America. All shapes and sizes, all investment levels, all different industries, all operational considerations. For someone just to go out and look at businesses broadly, it's almost impossible. So of course what we do is we help narrow that scope by helping somebody understand themselves. Certainly they need to help us understand them for us to do our job, but more often, or as often as that, it's us helping them understand what it is they're actually looking for, what it is they're good at, what it is they're not good at, what it is they like or they don't like, of course, investment parameters and income objectives and wealth building objectives, and really getting to know them as we've gotten to know the brands that we have in our inventory, which we've curated a list of franchise companies very deliberately that are less than 10% of all of the franchisors that actually exist out there. So we've done so much of that advanced work for folks. That's the value that we bring. But a lot of our candidates, clients that we've worked with, of course, over the years, at least start their search, perhaps before they find us, looking at an existing revenue opportunity, a euphemism for a resale. Because it seems like, well, it's already generating revenue. It's already generating profit, presumably. It's already established as a brand. It's what we're looking for in a non-franchise business. I'll use the word independent business begrudgingly, um, where what we help them determine, and ultimately they end up knowing as confidently as we do, or nearly, is that you don't necessarily need to find a resale to find what you're looking for. In fact, very often it's not a resale that you are looking for. It's established systems. It's understanding the KPIs, as we were discussing before. It's so much more that a franchise can bring, whether a resale or not. If somebody is absolutely focused on an existing revenue opportunity or a resale, but also comes to understand the power, the benefit of being within a franchise system, it's still about the fit of the model. Oh, the business that I'm looking at over there, it's $1 million business and it's already, 6-figure profit. Doesn't matter what the widget is, doesn't matter whether I would be good at that business or have the skill set or the time or all the things that it takes. It's not going to generate money next year after you buy it. It's not going to excel if it's not the right fit for you as an operator. So in my mind, in my experience, which is, as you started to suggest, has been about 25 years and having worked with thousands and thousands of people through these considerations, it's far more about the model being the right fit than a business that already has revenue. Now, if you can find both, which is a really rare thing, a business that already exists, it's already generating revenue, it's got a good reputation, it's profitable, it's got a great infrastructure, and it checks all the boxes of the characteristics that makes it a good fit for you, fantastic. That's extremely, extremely rare to find. And once it is found, if that business is really healthy already, the seller either isn't selling, but in this discussion, of course, we're assuming they are, then they're going to be asking for a premium. And when it comes down, okay, this is perfect, it's making so much money, and it's the right fit for me, but there's no way I'm going to pay a 5 multiple. Typical resale goes for a 3 multiple or whatever it is. I'm not going to pay that. Well, the other side is if you find a business that is for sale for the multiple that you believe is the right multiple, or less, it's a deal. Then there's a reason for that. There are challenges. That's going to take a greater investment, certainly a greater effort, greater everything, more time, more grit, more frustration, a whole culture change perhaps, change in the labor that's in the model, a change in so much fundamentally about that business if it's priced in a way that's attractive. Again, one of the reasons that a resale may not be as attractive to somebody as they think is ultimately the seller and the buyer coming together on the proper valuation of a business.
Right.
Difficult to happen.
Right. So why don't we talk through just some of the investments for franchises that are in our inventory? And a lot of the times we talk to people, Eric, about replacing their income. And they want to replace their income, and they make $200,000 a year. But then they're also looking at existing businesses. And one of the existing businesses that they're looking at is for sale for $1.2 million, but it could replace their income right away. How would you go about talking to them about looking at a brand new franchise versus an existing?
So the math ultimately becomes rather simple. Maybe getting the variables into a formula. The formula is simple. Getting the variables into it may be the more challenging part. And any numbers that you put out or that I put out obviously is just for kind of discussion purposes, to kind of wrap your head around. Helps me wrap my head around things. But in your example, somebody needs to make $200,000. And there's a business that's available for sale that's doing that. That's for $1.2 million. Versus, and I'm just kind of reframing your question or restating it. Versus deciding that's the right business model for me. That's the right franchisor. That's the right business model. That's the business that I want to be in. I can start from scratch, but I've got to replace my $200,000 $5 salary, right? There's a formula that you and I have talked about before, that simplest of algebraic formulas of A plus B equals C. A is, if I were to start from scratch, what would it cost me? What would the investment be to get the business to positive cash flow, operational cash flow, where the revenue of the business exceeds the expenses of operating the business? And how long that takes and over what period of time is an important thing to consider. And it's something that can very confidently be determined during the discovery process that we guide people through. It has to be, or there can't be a confident decision at the end that it's the right or the wrong business for somebody if they can't pull in those KPIs, understand the business and pull in those KPIs, apply a lot of what we've been speaking about already to it. That's A. What's it going to take and how long is it going to take to get the business from launch to operational profitability? That's A. Plus B. B is, over that period of time, A should be really the same for anybody, more or less. It should be consistent whether you're in the suburbs of the Twin Cities or whether you're in the suburbs of Baltimore, Washington, or Atlanta or Denver or anywhere else, so long as it's not a wholly unique business offering, which you and I stay away from really guiding people to a business that might do well in one place and not well in another. Our businesses are very consistent in that way, the businesses in our inventory. So A should be the same no matter who's doing the evaluation for the most part. B becomes much more personal. B is, in your example, someone that's making $200,000, but there might be somebody else who needs to replace $100,000 or somebody else that needs to replace $500,000. B is different, right? So A is, what's it going to cost me to get the business to operational profitability? B is, what do I need as my nut to take care of, to maintain my personal lifestyle, my family's lifestyle over that period of time launching the business? C is what you actually need to invest in the business. If looking at a startup, franchise or otherwise, and that let's just use an example, that C, A plus B equals C, that C is, I don't know, $700,000. Totally making numbers up. And back to the resale example, was to get there right now, tomorrow, I'm paying $1.2 million. That delta in that example of a $500,000, is it worth, if the business is right for you, and you believe confidently that whether you buy a business that exists, that you can maintain it and grow it, or that you launch it from scratch, it's the same business model. That you launch it from scratch and you do it effectively and build it to where you need to be, where it needs to be. Is that $500,000 delta worth buying an existing business, or are you better off starting from scratch? So what's it going to take to launch the business from scratch, and how long is it going to take, and what do I need to maintain my lifestyle while that happens? Income-wise, capital-wise, versus I can buy into it right now. And by the way, something that almost always happens, certainly there are exceptions to it, but a business, a resale business, even when it's relatively or exceptionally healthy when it's purchased, almost always slides a bit before it continues on, assuming it's on a positive trajectory as it is. It almost always. Depending on the business, there could be a variety of reasons for that, but customers, employees, the learning curve, it almost slides a bit. Harder thing to know, because you can't know, an individual, a client of ours can't know, and we certainly can't know for them, how well they're going to execute that business model until they're in it.
Right.
And that's true for starting from scratch as well. Do your diligence, and the diligence is thorough. It's significant. But you can't know until you actually get out there and start to execute. So that may have been a whole lot more than what you wanted from the question, Lydia, but hopefully you
No,
know
that was
somewhere is the answer to it.
that was very helpful. And the other thing is, a very good franchisor is going to make sure that you have the capital in hand to do that run
Absolutely.
until
The
you break
last
even.
thing, for sure. The last thing a franchisor wants to do is put somebody into a business, which technically this isn't the right word, but essentially for discussion purposes is a partnership between the franchisor and the franchisee. They don't want to partner with somebody that maybe the business model is a great fit, and the franchisor and the candidate, ultimately the franchisee, determine it's a great fit. But if they're not everybody knows the biggest reason a business might fail is poor capitalization.
Yeah.
It's true. So a franchisor isn't going to ultimately approve somebody, even if it's a great fit for them operationally and culturally and all of those things, if they don't have the right capital. That for sure, it's for sure true no matter what, but it certainly is true in a resale situation as well, because as the franchise model, I think, is obvious to people, the franchisor's benefit, the franchisor's return on their investment, which is a significant investment in all ways, is a royalty stream on the revenue. So if somebody comes in and they can't, whether it's from a capital position or who they are,
They don't have the right skill set too.
right? They're it's going to cost them money to train and transition and bring a new person in. If that business slides back, the franchisor is making an investment with less of a return. So being capitalized properly, of course, is critically important. And anybody that gets into business poorly capitalized, undercapitalized, well, I hate to use such a strong word, but it's foolish.
Yeah.
It's reckless. It's an absolute direct path to failure.
Absolutely. Yeah. In terms of ROI, and we kind of talked about this actually, just going over everything with the existing business versus starting from scratch. So what is typically faster? Buying a franchise or an existing non-franchise business?
Yeah. Again, it completely depends, and it goes back largely to that A plus B equals C.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're going to pay for the business and what the business is cash flowing, and if you pay $1.2 million and the business is cash flowing $200,000, which I guess is the example we were discussing. Well, the math is easy. It takes 6 years just to recoup what you paid for the business. And if you're looking at it in that kind of direct proportionate way of 6 years, you're not enjoying any owner benefit, any income while you're doing that. You're just, if that's how you're looking at it. So it's a difficult question to answer until you know what you're paying for the business and you know what it's cash flowing and have confidence what it would be cash flowing when that somebody bought the business. It's a little bit simpler. Again, simpler is the right word rather than easier, to project what and when a return on investment happens when you're launching from scratch, because you're far more in control of the factors. You're far more in control of how you execute the business model. You're far more in control of who you hire in critical roles or any role of the company. So, and you get to build your reputation with customers. You get to build your brand, not buy or adopt, and ultimately almost certainly have to adapt what somebody else has built. So it's hard to quantify. It's hard to say for sure. It's clear from the discussion that we're having that while resales can bring some benefit when you really find that unicorn, that the real unicorn to be found, and it's far easier. So I guess it wouldn't be a unicorn. Let's take the horn and the wings away and call it a thoroughbred. Is to find the right franchise model. See what I did there, and launch it from scratch.
Yeah.
There's no mistaking, that I think that's the more powerful way to build a business. But again, if you can find the unicorn, fantastic. How many unicorns have you ever seen in your life? Not many, and I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Eric, for joining me today, and thank you everyone for tuning in to learn a little bit more about evaluating resales.